When my in-laws found out I got a raise, my father-in-law said, she probably flirted her way to the top. Everyone laughed. My husband said, they're just teasing. I didn't laugh. I went to work, filed a complaint with HR, then forwarded their family group chat to my manager as a case study on casual misogyny. 2 weeks later, he booked me to speak at a company summit. Topic: respect. I'm 34, female, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been married to my husband Josh for 6 years. I work in logistics, specifically supply chain operations for a national retail company. Not exactly glamorous, but I've always loved the puzzle of making things run smoothly. 2 months ago, I got promoted. I became regional operations manager. It came with a big raise, more responsibility, and a private office. I worked my ass off for it. Long nights, skipped vacations, training people who ended up getting promoted before me, and surviving in a male-dominated team where I had to be twice as prepared just to be seen as average. When I finally got that promotion, I didn't throw a party or post about it online. I told Josh. He gave me a hug, said, "I'm proud of you," and that was that. It felt good until we visited his family. That Sunday, we drove over to Josh's parents' house in Westchester for a family barbecue. It's a standing tradition. His dad grills, his mom brings out potato salad. The cousins show up with cheap beer and loud opinions. The house is comfortable in that Midwest way. Lots of gray carpet, framed family photos, and a giant wooden sign above the kitchen that says, "Family is everything." I always try to keep things light with them. Josh's family is conservative, loud, and sarcastic. The kind of people who call political correctness what's ruining America and think their offensive jokes are just honest talk. We were halfway through dinner when his mom, Sheila, asked, "So how's work, sweetie?" Josh said something about a promotion. I smiled. "Yeah, I got promoted to Regional Operations Manager last month." She said, "That's wonderful." And then Randy, my father-in-law, let out this grunt of a laugh. She probably flirted her way to the top. The table erupted in laughter. Full-on, open-mouth, beer-spitting laughter. Josh's cousin Mark nearly choked on his burger. Even Josh chuckled. Just sat there and laughed with them. I stared at my plate. Sheila said, "Oh, Randy, stop it," but she was still giggling. Josh leaned over and said, "They're just teasing, babe. Don't take it so seriously." I didn't say anything, not because I was hurt, because I was angry. Boiling. But I knew if I spoke, I'd explode. So I just stayed quiet. Smiled that tight, fake smile women used to hide every ounce of fury. After dinner, I helped Sheila clean up. Josh and the guys went out back to drink. While I washed dishes, Sheila said, "He doesn't mean anything by it, you know. Randy's just old school." Yeah, old school. That's what people say when they want to excuse being sexist without calling it that. We left around 10 p.m. Josh tried to lighten the mood in the car, but I barely spoke. When we got home, I went straight to our bedroom and shut the door. I lay awake for hours. The thing that stuck with me wasn't Randy's comment. It was how normal it was for them. How casual. How it rolled off his tongue, how easily the rest of them laughed. And how Josh, my husband, did nothing. And that's when something clicked. I wasn't just mad. I was done. The next day, I got into work early. I shut my office door, sat down, and opened a blank document. I started typing every sexist comment I'd heard in the last year, inside and outside the office. Stuff like, "You're really organized for a woman." "You're not like most girls, thank God." "We didn't think you'd want the promotion since you're probably thinking about kids soon." Then I wrote about what Randy said. I didn't name him. I didn't say it happened at a barbecue. I just described it as a common situation women face in and out of the workplace. Someone reducing their success to looks or flirting. I attached it to an HR report. I titled it, "A Culture of Casual Misogyny and Its Impact on Professional Advancement." Then I opened my phone. Josh's family has a group chat. I rarely post in it, but I never left. I scrolled up and found months of trash. Screenshots of jokes about female drivers, women who cry, just to get attention, and one meme Randy sent that said, "Sexual harassment is just compliments from the wrong guy." It made me sick, but it was perfect. So I forwarded it all to my manager. I didn't ask for anyone to get in trouble. I told him, this is what women are still up against. This is the casual, everyday misogyny that gets brushed off as humor. This is why it's so hard to speak up. I figured maybe he'd read it. Maybe he'd delete it. I didn't care anymore. 2 weeks later, he called me into his office. He shut the door, sat down, and said, "That email you sent, it hit me hard." I waited. "I shared it with the executive team," he said. "Everyone agreed it needed to be part of something bigger." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "We want you to speak at the annual company summit. We're calling the panel Respect in the Workplace. We want you to open it." I was stunned. I don't like public speaking. I'm not the person who volunteers to be the face of anything. But something in me said do it. I said yes. That night, I didn't tell Josh. I started writing my talk. And at the very top of the page, I typed, "She probably flirted her way to the top." Because that's how I'm going to open. After I agreed to speak at the summit, I kept it quiet. I wasn't hiding it. I was waiting for the right moment. But the truth is, I didn't want Josh to know. Not yet. Not until I was sure I could trust him to see what I was doing for what it really was, not just causing drama. A week later, HR sent out the internal email announcing the panel. Subject: Respect in the Workplace, a leadership talk on equity and voice body. Join us for a panel featuring our own regional operations manager, sharing real experiences and insights on gender dynamics in leadership. I knew it would get noticed. What I didn't expect was for Josh to find out about it through one of his coworkers. That night, he came home early. He had a look on his face, somewhere between confused and pissed. "You're giving a speech at your company?" he asked, holding his phone. I said, "Yeah." "You didn't tell me." "No," I said. "I didn't." He set his phone down. Ben at my office saw the company bulletin. He asked if the woman speaking was my wife. I shrugged. "And what did you say?" I said yes, obviously. But now I'm wondering, what is this speech even about? I told him the truth. Every bit of it. About the HR complaint, the forwarded messages from his family's group chat, and how my manager asked me to speak. His face changed. He wasn't confused anymore. He was pissed. "You sent my family's messages to your manager?" I did. He stood up from the couch. "Jesus, Sarah. That's private." "No, Josh," I said. "That's sexist garbage. You sat there and laughed with them. You didn't stand up for me, and now you're mad that I did something about it." They were joking. And I wasn't laughing. He paced the living room, running his hands through his hair. "Do you have any idea how this makes me look?" I stared at him. "This isn't about how you look. It's about what I've lived." He didn't respond. That night, he slept on the couch. The next few days were tense. He barely spoke to me. I could tell he was talking to his family behind my back because I started getting texts from Sheila. She said, "Sweetheart, I heard what you did. Please, let's not make this into a family issue." Randy texted me too. "Don't come around acting high and mighty when you've got no sense of humor." Nobody meant any harm. I didn't respond to any of them. But then, something happened I wasn't prepared for. Josh's cousin, Erin, the only other woman in their family who worked full-time, messaged me privately. She said, "I saw the company invite. I want you to know. I heard what Randy said at the barbecue. It wasn't right. And honestly, thank you for doing what I couldn't." That message hit hard. Because for every Randy out there, there's an Erin staying silent. And I wasn't just speaking for me anymore. At work, word was spreading. People I barely knew stopped me in the hall to say things like, "Good for you," and "It's about time someone said something." But it wasn't all support. One guy from our IT team rolled his eyes when I passed by and muttered to another coworker, "Guess you can't joke about anything anymore." I didn't stop walking, but I heard it, and I remembered it. 2 days before the summit, I got a call from Sheila. "Josh is really upset," she said. "I know. He says you embarrassed him." I took a breath. He embarrassed himself. "Look," she said, "Randy shouldn't have said that. But this whole thing, it's going too far." I said no. It's going exactly as far as it needs to. She paused. "We're your family too." "You laughed," I said. "All of you. And now that someone's finally saying something, I'm the problem." She didn't reply. Just hung up. The next day, Josh packed a bag. "I'm going to stay with my parents for a bit," he said. I looked at him. "Are you serious?" "I need space." "You need to figure out if your loyalty is with me or with people who don't respect me," I said. He didn't answer. Just walked out, and I stood there in our living room, watching the door close. The night before the summit, I sat alone at the kitchen table, practicing my speech out loud. I didn't cry. I didn't second-guess it. I just spoke the words like I meant them. Because I did. And the first lines still read, "She probably flirted her way to the top." The morning of the summit, I showed up early. I wore a dark navy blazer, not flashy, but strong. My hands were steady. I thought I'd be nervous. I wasn't. I was angry, but calm, like something inside me had hardened just enough to hold everything together. They held the summit in a downtown Cincinnati hotel conference room. Rows of chairs, name tags, water bottles lined up like soldiers. I spotted my manager, Mark, near the stage. He gave me a reassuring nod. "You ready?" he asked. "Absolutely," I said. The room filled fast, over 150 people, mostly from upper management and regional departments. I saw faces I'd only known through email before. A few women smiled at me like they were rooting for me. A few men looked uncomfortable. One guy from HQ didn't even try to hide his eye roll when I walked up to the mic. I started with the quote, "She probably flirted her way to the top." Then I paused. That's what my father-in-law said at a family barbecue when he found out I got promoted. Everyone laughed. My husband said, "They're just teasing." I didn't laugh. I went to work the next day and filed an HR report. There was a ripple in the room. Some people shifted in their seats, some froze. I walked them through what I wrote. I showed screenshots, anonymized, but raw. I read quotes from the group chat. I talked about what casual misogyny looks like. I explained how these jokes build a wall around women, making us smaller, making it harder to lead without being second-guessed. I said, respect isn't just a policy. It's how we show up when no one's watching. It's what we laugh at. It's what we excuse. The room was dead silent. When I finished, people stood. Applause. Real, loud, honest applause. A few women had tears in their eyes. Even some of the men clapped hard. Afterward, I was swarmed. People wanted to thank me, share their own stories. HR asked if I'd helped develop a company-wide respect training. A regional VP even asked if I'd consider a move to corporate HQ in Chicago. I wasn't expecting what happened next. Josh showed up at my office later that day. He looked like hell, tired, rumpled. Like he hadn't slept. "I saw the recording," he said. My stomach tightened. "Okay, you said everything you needed to say." I folded my arms. "And?" He sat down. "I'm sorry." I stared at him. "I should have stood up for you. At the barbecue. In the car. When you told me what you did. I should have backed you, not my dad." "You're damn right you should have," I said. He nodded. "I know. I let you down. I wasn't raised to see what you're up against. But I saw it. In your speech. And I saw what you're carrying." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a printout. It was the group chat messages. The ones I'd sent to my manager. I printed them. "I read every word," he said. "And I called my dad." I raised my eyebrows. "You did?" He nodded. We fought. It got loud. He said I was being brainwashed. I told him if he didn't change, he'd lose both of us. That caught me off guard. Josh looked me straight in the eye. I don't know if I deserve a second chance, but I want to learn. I want to be better. I want to be someone who doesn't just love you, but defends you. I didn't say anything. Not yet. It wasn't the kind of thing words could fix right away. But I also didn't kick him out. That night, I got a text from Aaron again. You shook the walls today. You did something I wish I had the guts to do. Thank you. Then another message came through, this one from someone I never expected. Unknown number. You made your point. Loud and clear. But don't think this is over. There was no name. But I knew who it was. Randy. I stared at that text from Randy for a long time. You made your point. Loud and clear. But don't think this is over. That was his way of reminding me he thought he was still in control. Like I had stirred the pot, and now he was going to put the lid back on. But what he didn't understand, what he never would understand, is that once you speak truth out loud, you can't just shove it back in a drawer. I didn't respond. But I didn't ignore it either. Instead, I screenshotted that message too. I added it to a folder on my desktop called Legacy. It had everything now. Group chat screenshots, voice memos of work conversations, emails, and yes, that text. I kept it all, not for revenge, for proof. That week, things got messy fast. Word spread about my speech, even outside the company. A few local outlets picked up the story. Nothing big, just business blogs and LinkedIn posts. But somehow, Randy saw it. Or someone showed it to him. Maybe it was someone at his golf club, maybe someone from church. But what mattered was he felt embarrassed. And Randy doesn't like being embarrassed. 3 days later, Josh got a call from his mom. I could hear her shouting through the phone. He's going to sue. He said you let her ruin his name. Josh kept saying, Mom, no one mentioned his name. It's not defamation if it's true. But Randy wasn't hearing it. He started calling Josh's work, trying to get him fired. Left voicemails accusing me of being a corporate cancer, saying we were a threat to the family. Then one day, I got home from work and found a printed-out article shoved into our mailbox. It was a story about women faking harassment for attention. It was folded up with a sticky note on it that read, "People are starting to see through your act." No signature. But we both knew where it came from. That night, I sat at the table with Josh and said, I can't do this anymore. He was quiet. I understand. You should have stood up for me back then. Before any of this. I know. I needed a partner. Not someone who sat there and laughed. He nodded slowly. I was weak. You still are. I wasn't being cruel. Just honest. And I realized I was tired of holding everything together while everyone else got to make mistakes and hide behind family dinners and old school values. I was done being the strong one in a marriage built on silence. I want a divorce, I said. Josh didn't fight it. He moved out a week later. I kept the house. He said he'd try to keep the peace with his family, but I told him not to bother. I blocked them all. But that wasn't the end. Randy couldn't let it go. He kept pushing. So I pushed back. A woman I used to work with, Danny, reached out to me. She saw the summit recording online and said, Your story gave me courage. You're not the only one Randy has treated like garbage. I asked her what she meant. Turns out, Danny had worked for Randy 10 years ago. He ran a small contracting company before he retired. She said he used to call her sweet cheeks and once grabbed her wrist in the break room because she wasn't smiling enough. I asked her if she'd be willing to say that on record. She was. I connected her with a labor rights reporter I met at the summit. The reporter started digging. 3 weeks later, a story dropped. Retired business owner accused of pattern of workplace harassment by former employees. There were 3 women willing to talk. One even had journal entries and dated notes from that time. It was Randy. All of it. And now his name was in headlines. He tried to sue the reporter. Failed. He tried to threaten Danny's job. Backfired. Then someone at the local Chamber of Commerce pulled his invitation to speak at a business luncheon. He was furious. But the worst part for him? No one was defending him anymore. Not even Sheila. Josh told me later that his mom found out Randy had cheated on her years ago, something that came out during all the fighting. She left him, moved in with her sister in Dayton. She even apologized to me through Josh, said she wished she'd listened more closely that day at the barbecue. I believed her, but I didn't forgive her, because she laughed too. As for me, I got offered the position in Chicago. I took it, moved last month. Started fresh. Got a new apartment, a new manager title, a whole new team. I speak at corporate events now. Not because I like the spotlight, but because it's worth it to see the look on another woman's face when she hears the words and realizes she's not crazy. Not alone. And yes, I made mistakes too. I married a man who didn't see me until it was too late. I stayed silent for too long, let too much slide, tried to be the cool wife who didn't make a scene. But never again. I learned something the hard way. Silence protects no one but the people who already have power. And when that silence finally broke, it shattered more than I expected, but exactly what needed to fall.